So actually my talk is on AI security for science. Why should we care? And this is not going to be a very technical talk. I'm going to try to convince you why, even though we all have lots to do in our day jobs of security, that we should be paying more attention to AI as it's used in science and some security issues there. So just to set the stage, NSF and other agencies have been funding just an awful lot in applying AI techniques to scientific discovery. Most of these are from this month or last month. AI research institutes in astronomy and all sorts of different sciences. And I put a quote here in a box from the current NSF director that with reliable and trustworthy AI in their toolbox, everyone will have these valuable insights. I can tell you from my observations in the past year of this increasing usage, and I'll show you there's not really any good or any prescriptive definitions of trustworthy AI, and the science folks are really just not thinking about it. So there's several related fields of kind of semantics that go along with this, AI safety, alignment, generative AI, explainable AI. So lots of this stuff makes it very confusing to navigate this roadmap. So I want to keep us kind of focused on the use case of science. So really, if you heard the panel yesterday, uses of kind of what I'll talk about in terms of kind of adversarial AI really started around 2004. And this is one of the kind of classic, when this started, it was with a malware company, and really kind of doing adversarial AI techniques started with spam filters and trying to beat spam filters. So this is like the classic, how do you use kind of machine learning models in an adversarial way against each other to beat the spam filter, and all those kind of classic ways we know of using certain keywords and characters to do that. Thus began the flood of academic papers on this. As soon as an academic security person sees a chance for any interesting bug or side channel or something, there's these papers. So this guy, Nicholas Carlini at Google, had been tracking these year after year. He stopped in 2021 or so, but this meteoric rise in how to use adversarial AI. Around 2019 is when I kind of got involved with this. At DEF CON, we did a deep fake of the Democratic National Chair, thinking the lack of AI security and Gen AI was going to destroy democracy. And that video that we did took almost 2 weeks between training and putting it together. And we did a recent one last week, and it took us like 15 minutes. So, this stuff's just gone so quickly. So what is adversarial machine learning? What is adversarial AI? You heard Hiram Anderson in the panel, if you listened yesterday. He was one of the architects of this taxonomy. So NIST, and it was only last year that NIST has a taxonomy of what adversarial machine learning is. Basically, the premise is that the methods underpinning machine learning are vulnerable for lots of different reasons. I highlighted myself data, because I think that's where a lot of the key is, especially in the scientific community. About 2022, this also, DoD kind of keyed in on this because, as many of you, and maybe with different funding sources, know a lot of AI is dual use. It's for science reasons. It's also used in kind of DoD and defense reasons. That's very popular. So DoD was really concerned. What could be the impact of these adversarial attacks? They're hard to design and deploy. How realistic are they? So it was only a couple of years ago people really started thinking, what's like realistically, what can they attack and what are people going to do against machine learning models and in what kinds of systems? So just some trends about the past 4 years. These AI red teams are gaining traction, of course, starting in industry. Google, NVIDIA, Microsoft, they have reasons to make sure that they have teams that try to attack their models, recommendation systems to make sure they're trustworthy. So that they have more financial incentives to do that. A lot of these machine learning kind of AI ethics teams have appeared and disappeared at the big content companies, kind of trying to say within this pipeline, are you sourcing and using AI data in an ethical way? Are the results fair? That trend has come and gone for lots of different reasons. And of course, explosion of large language models, ChatGPT and all these things, and a lot of red teaming of them, which primarily is prompt injection attacks, which is like you try to go and make the guardrails disappear and make the language model say crazy things. And we did a big event at DEF CON last year, hammering a lot of the popular models. Had 2,000 or 3,000 people trying to do this to improve the guardrails by attacking them. There's an explosion of these new AI safety and security organizations, many of them at NIST. I don't know if Rodney's still here, but NIST has many of these, like the brand new AI Security Center at NSA, AI Safety Institute, which is at NIST, NIST also has a trustworthy and responsible AI resource center and just multiple nonprofits. So there's more attention on places, especially in different communities, where people can get some form of, I guess, guidance. There's also a lot of new, I just bundled all these together. I didn't want to make too many slides, kind of standards, tools, and frameworks. So some tools have been open sourced, like Counterfeit is a pretty good risk assessment tool that Microsoft open sourced. Google has a framework. IBM, of course, has this framework for secure generative AI. NIST, I helped contribute to this. NIST has a AI risk management framework. If you don't have enough NIST stuff to refer to, they have this. It is not very prescriptive, but it gives some kind of context for the risks of AI. The FDA, just because of the numerous kind of software in medical devices, have this action plan, very not prescriptive. And of course, OWASP has their top 10 for machine learning and LLMs. I think Hiram also referred to Atlas, which he was one of the architects of. Atlas, it mimics exactly the MITRE attack toolkit. So Atlas is kind of an AI version of the MITRE attack. This is all to say there's been a big focus on risk and guidelines that are not prescriptive, which it's not super helpful if you're a practitioner of this, especially I think in the last panel, the gentleman who said, bench science or kind of people doing it, they're not going to necessarily care about the security. We need to do that. So the fact that this is not prescriptive is not super helpful. So there's just a big focus on risk. Much of this, as I'll get to, is due to kind of legal and compliance and organizations that are a little more worried about monetary, kind of getting sued versus really like making sure things are safe. Again, no standard definitions or guidelines. I'll show the White House executive order from last year. It references, you should follow best practices for AI safety and security. Where are these? Well, they're not really there yet. So why am I talking about AI red teaming, AI security? We have enough to do in our day jobs. Like, why should we care? So a couple of reasons. One being that the White House just about a year ago put out this executive order, which is very, very good, very long, about safe, secure, trustworthy development and use of AI. It mimics, it was kind of a forcing function. The EU AI Act last year, the EU tends to really have their act together before the US. That was kind of a forcing function that the White House had to do something. But I circled here, which is really interesting, and there was a lot of kind of back channel at the White House to do this, but saying AI red teaming, and it references it several times in here, in adversarial methods, which is great for us security people. I also circled this. So this is from the EO, this verbiage up here, which says any foundation model that might pose a risk to national security, economic security, or public health, which is like pretty much anything you can think of, must share results of red team safety tests. I circled these. So NSF has been tagged to ensure the availability of testing environments. Luckily, I run a big test bed. This is great. And also to develop guidelines for AI red teaming. So it is definitely coming from DOE and NSF at some point. So again, what kind of industry's gotten a little ahead of us. They have their own AI red teams. Their incentives are different. So AI security itself is an emerging field. What does this mean? It's a fairly small-ish community, I'd say, but hopefully, and I would love this to grow, because the folks I work with and know in AI security are just all over the map. They are data science, network security, data security, ethics, privacy, machine learning security. It's a great field, I think, especially if you're up and coming in security, because it's kind of a broad mishmash of different skill sets that all come together. It's also socio-technical. I think we forget about this sometimes, where there is a big element of ethics in terms of data collection and usage, community impact. All that is fair game for an AI red team. How is this data set composed? Where did you get the data from? I'm seeing a troubling amount, and if folks don't realize this, LLMs are trained, and now some science models are trained from people just scraping, Reddit and TikTok and things like that. They can do it, but maybe it's up to us to question the ethics behind this. So the data set composition, the governance, and many, those of us who work in security should feel some kind of obligation to really highlight if we see bad uses in science or unethical uses. I'll just reference this because I think thinking about red teaming is not just a technical, like pen testing. Thinking of it is, If you're in security, like many of us, you tend to be rather cynical in general. Many people, we love to play devil's advocate and look for worst case scenario. So I like to think of kind of AI red teaming in this way, because we will probably never be experts on the science and how they construct some of the models, but we sure are experts on asking questions. So I kind of like to frame it that way. So in general, I think a lot of us know how system security is evaluated, really thinking about the threat model, all the ways the attacker can get into the system. We think about this when we secure our science projects. Thinking about the motivation, again, in AI, especially AI for science, it is different. So, in this case, can we trick the system into misclassifying inputs, especially like, malware and phishing? This has been done for many years. Is somebody seeking harm? I think Rodney and Mike Korn both mentioned, nation states looking perhaps to do some damage. One of the big drivers also is compliance and auditing of AI, because there's been some forcing functions from places like, I probably can't read this, but the EEOC. So this is really interesting, and many of them I work with in some of the red teaming, which is there is a huge increase in the use of AI machine learning in hiring systems. Somewhere upwards of 80, 90% of hiring decisions are made with AI tooling. These things are not audited. They are black box. There's even courses at universities for how students can get around the AI hiring algorithm. So this is driven okay, who should be even looking at this, auditing it? Who should be asking questions about compliance? So that's been some kind of drivers on the side. So what is an AI attack? Really, it's a type of security attack, and there's lots of conversations about, is it really different than your basic security and attacks, on the security system? It is and it isn't. Thinking about attacking the model in isolation is not really, what we're going for. So if you think of AI attacks as a type of security attack, as a panel mentioned yesterday, these are sometimes hard to identify in the wild and hard to separate. Is it an AI vulnerability? Is it just bad system software? Is it a bad database? What makes it an AI attack? This is in context. What's the threat model? So looking away from evaluating a model in isolation, I think is one of the key things, as is team composition. If it is just your hardcore security people, I don't think you get as much out of this as you think about people who kind of can think broadly. So if you're not familiar with some of these are easy kind of AI attacks, kind of classic for the past decade. There's a very famous putting this stop sign, which is actually, I think, in Don Song's office at UC Berkeley, but you can put these stickers and it fools an autonomous car. These optical illusion stickers, so it'll make you misclassify things. This particular makeup, if you're an Insane Clown Posse fan, this makeup at least used to fool facial recognition algorithms. Systems have developed beyond this, but these are the point is many of these interesting, thousands of papers on AI attacks are really done in a controlled setting and not in the real world. But all this work is good. This is your basic kind of classic computer vision system and how it gets misclassified. And this is still done today. This is from at least 10 years ago, but this is how a system will take what looks like a panda and the system thinks it's a gibbon. Why? Just some very tiny added noise, and the ML system thinks it's a given. So this is kind of the classic computer vision. I bring this up only because I'm seeing more in science, of course, computer vision and multimodal AI, which is using computer vision, as well as data sets and different types of AI. An AI poisoning attack, this is, again, from Microsoft Tay chatbot from 2000, I don't know, I think 2016, I should have put the year down, but within, I think 15 minutes, Tay went off the rails and became racist and tweeted this, and it got taken off 50 minutes later. A great example of no guardrails, putting a system out there, which no security people looked at this. It was we'll just see what the great idea this chatbot is. The training data was the internet. Thus, I bring up, maybe scraping Reddit and TikTok is not the best training data for things. Generative AI, this has really taken a lot of the oxygen out of the room in the past 2 years about AI security, and people tend to think of it in terms of securing large language models. There's a lot of work in that space. This is really just crafting inputs to override the guardrails and making it say, making the system say crazy stuff. And there's always fights with the companies making these models to make sure it doesn't say crazy stuff back. And the attacks, if you've seen people do these attacks, they're very, very nuanced. Ignore previous instructions. So they've had AI making bioweapons and bombs and stuff like that, and it's this cat and mouse game. But what about AI in science, which is our domain? So again, to remind us, AI is used just a lot more in scientific discovery. I'm sure you all know that. It's used an awful lot in, so I'm in Chicago, and there's a lot of big pharma companies. It's being used just increasingly in big pharma for drug discoveries where they are not doing as many human trials. They're using a lot of interesting ML AI methods to do drug development. They're actually sharing data with competitors, kind of co-opetition, to do things faster. So in terms of that data sharing, again, they're incentivized to do this. And yeah, I thought this was really cool. This the ancient scrolls that you can't unravel because they're all charred and crispy, they were able to use some machine learning and I think CT scans to read the ancient Greek on that. So very basics. If folks don't know, just have a couple diagrams of kind of the basic machine learning process. And this is not necessarily the whole pipeline, but if you're not familiar with this, you feed in training data, which you can source either from, again, you can scrape the internet, you can get it from your best friend, you can get it from lots of open data sets that are on the internet, lots of academic data sets. So you take that, pick your favorite algorithm, the model does some learning, it is now trained, and it pops out some results. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about why this is good and bad. This is just a little more under the hood. I stole this from a collaborator of mine who used to be at IBM. But kind of a little more about the pipeline. There's the data collection, the model development, the model inferencing, and then it becomes something. So probably none of us are machine learning experts, but many people on your campus or in your project are doing this. So what does this mean for us? Like, where are some vulnerabilities? So I just kind of overlaid some of these in red. Probably not super easy to use. So some kind of traditional-ish security things overlaid on this. People collect data, they put it somewhere. Oftentimes this could be just in GitHub, it could be in a campus cluster, but thinking about, there's lots of stakeholders, lots of people accessing this. That's kind of a classic security problem. How's the data classified? There's an awful lot of talk about, PII and sharing, but as you all well know, it goes well beyond just PII. There's different data classifications. In terms of securing the model, I think one of the big highlights that is very similar to regular security is supply chain attacks. I don't know why I put supply chain attacks. I think that I did not mean to do that. So everything from the hardware and the chips to a lot of our models and data and libraries are open sourced, and there's been very interesting work on in Hugging Face and these other very large source. Very large open source tools that people use, they're just riddled with vulnerabilities and bugs, and people just don't have time to look through them. So that's a supply chain attack in terms of that. The usage, think of the prompt injection attacks. DOS attacks are sometimes just a lot easier to take it down. But you go that layer down, what does it mean to secure this whole infrastructure? It's very similar to what we think of in traditional security. In addition, kind of thinking more about API security, because many of these tools are, have APIs to the big large language models or other data sets. And then in terms of just the governance, things that our folks are thinking about more, model drift, and that just means that the models, especially for things like malware or phishing, a model is good at a point in time. As people get smarter, the model drifts off and it's not as accurate. So you got to account for that, and then kind of fairness and bias. Not just in social results, but bias for scientific results can result from bad governance in terms of understanding the data source and how it goes through the model. I'm going to highlight, and I'm not going to go through this, but just to highlight a trend I'm seeing, which is more kind of scientific discovery around multimodal AI. So lots of folks getting sensor data, whether it's autos or kind of cameras in cities, water sensing, whatever that is, taking that and putting that in an algorithm along with other types of data. And the troubling thing I'm seeing, again, because I'm a cynic, is we're going to throw all these data sets in, and it's going to spit out some great science, which is good until it isn't. And the caution that I often see is what makes those results trustworthy, particularly if you're using, a data set that maybe you don't know the provenance of, but it's on a website, and you're using another data set, you put that together. kind of once the result comes out, understanding what makes that trustworthy, I don't think there's there's not enough questioning of it. So what are some challenges? I brought up some already, but what are some challenges of machine learning or AI in scientific discovery? Well, of course, many of our instruments and workflows have many, and increasingly more machine learning models. I'm seeing this more in astronomy and astrophysics and different places where there's a long or complex global pipeline for science. There's just a lot more machine learning along the way than there was 10, 20 years ago. We tend to use open source software and libraries that generally don't have a lot of controls around them. This multimodal AI, it is more complex to secure the pipeline if you think about the data sources, bigger threat surface. The challenge in our world, of course, is not money making, it's the integrity of science results. And it's not glamorous. It is not sexy. It's not like fooling ChatGPT. It's saving the world. It's helping society. It's not necessarily glamorous for people. So why is it different? So the machine learning operations pipeline, as is most science, it's in the hands of domain scientists. So they're concerned with functionality, not model security, not model trustworthiness, not necessarily result trustworthiness. They're concerned about interesting science discoveries to push the boundaries, and the cycle of science is just fast these days. Most models and data sets are just open. These collaborations are global, the cyber infrastructure is global, it's complex, but it's different because there is increasing concern, thus the NSPM 33 about unwanted influence campaigns and research security. And that, of course, the model integrity and the data can affect our results. So why should we care? We have enough in our day jobs, why should we care? Well, training data, poison is probably a bad word in these theoretical attacks. Just think of training data that's not accurate can bias the model in all sorts of ways. Extracting training data from environments that are more sensitive can breach privacy. Evasion attacks, you can misclassify objects. Jailbreaking, we've all seen with, like Tay and the different chat bots that you can bypass the safety features, have it say crazy things. Same for these prompt injections. So I just want to bring this up. This came out maybe a few weeks ago, and it just I thought it was a parody, but I'm seeing a troubling amount of this. It's this paper called The AI Scientist, Fully Automated Open-Ended Scientific Discovery. I just put one quote from the paper, which is, it enables LLMs to conduct scientific research almost entirely autonomously. And I am seeing a troubling amount of this kind of work being proposed and actually being done, where we're going to feed a lot of data and science is going to pop out on the other end. Which is great till it isn't. I just want to raise this up, again, if you're a cynic, just to be kind of mindful of the potential downsides of this. One forcing function, which is accelerating just kind of the pace of using AI for science discovery, is the NAIR, of course. It's in a pilot phase for the next, I think, couple of years, and then potentially like a $2-3 billion resource of primarily compute, data storage, advances AI, democratizes AI, lets people who are not just at elite institutions do good science. But this is accelerating the need and the driver behind some of these scientists of if I can get 1 million GPUs for free from the NAIR, I'm going to do things I wouldn't ordinarily be able to do at my campus cluster. So that's the forcing to just throw data in there, get some stuff done, and churn out some papers. I'm a cynic about that. It's doing many wonderful things, but this is a potential downside for trustworthiness. So why shouldn't we care? Again, we have lots of other stuff to do. There's ransomware still. There's basic security of the network. Some of these attacks, are hard to identify in practice. Detection and the methods to do that are still evolving. It's easier across an AI application pipeline to just social engineer somebody to get access, DOS the network, attack a database, or just take the data and the model and do your own thing. It's not flashy. There's no huge threat where I could point to a scientist and say, you've got to listen to us. But what if we wanted to try this? As I've been kind of making the rounds, talking to different science partners, there's a big interest to say, what could we do in this community? Well, find a willing science partner. Again, if folks have comments after this, please talk to me. But there are some science projects who are thinking about this, and basically, finding a willing science partner, attack their model and data pipeline in a safe manner to see, is there a realistic vulnerability or threat? Assess threats beyond just traditional kind of red teaming or pen testing, looking at the training data, the data sources, their open source software libraries, are there vulnerabilities in that? And then intentionally introducing, again, in a sandbox, some examples to identify and show, your AI classifier for, whatever, your physics might be fooled. So here's something to be cautious of. And accept by everybody, it's a proof of concept. We're not funded to the tune of Google. We are trying to pivot to do some of this in science. The communities that are interested so far, medical imaging, they have lots of reasons to be concerned about this and to be concerned about misclassifying, detection of whatever it is. Healthcare, I'm seeing more, talking to more who are interested with more kind of wearable sensors and devices and monitoring, of your personal data. They are concerned about that their applications are trustworthy. And some large science instruments, we're working with one, but the funding was unclear. Thank you, DOE. They're using reinforcement learning for instrument control of a very, very expensive instrument that had no kind of security or AI red teaming with it. Some possible outcomes for doing this in our community, maybe a standard toolkit for AI security and science and AI red teaming. Again, we're not big companies, but what's this toolkit that's reasonable? Just introducing, people, science teams and CI professionals and our security community to this concept to really further promote kind of software security model integrity, build a community for this new discipline of AI security. There is wide, across multiple agencies interested in this topic. I think they are all struggling as this industry in how to execute. We can enable greater integrity in research results that are using 1 million, 2 million GPUs to build new foundation models. We can be a part of making sure that has integrity. We can help identify for security researchers some of these theoretical attacks they just don't see in the wild. We can identify, are we seeing it, how likely they are, and by demonstrating this to the science community, hopefully we can improve science. So some call to action for you all. I think it's important to bridge this gap between machine learning and cybersecurity. I think if we don't, there'll be a lot of not only haves and have-nots, but it's going to remain this kind of mysterious, it's machine learning and AI, don't worry about it. We should, for lots of reasons, societal and personal and career-wise, we should think about how to bridge that gap and partner. I think we should be defining trustworthy AI and science in a practical way for our users. And I think all of you should be devil's advocates for AI and science uses, question the data quality. If you're working at an instrument or around scientists, I think it is not a bad thing to question the data sourcing, question the software pipeline, and think about how you can contribute to that. If you're interested in AI red teaming, let's talk about going forward. I got a tiny team and would love to talk to more people. And I think that's it. So drop me an email or come talk to me.